Welcome to the Near Memo, a weekly conversation about search, social, and commerce. What happened, why it matters, and the implications for local. Hey, welcome back, everybody. We are here again, David, Mike, and Greg, for episode 53 of the Near Memo, where we talk about search, social media, commerce, and other things that are on our minds. And obviously on everybody's mind this week is the invasion of Ukraine and the tragedy that represents. And many people know colleagues or have colleagues that work in Ukraine or know people in that country. And so, we hope that this can all be resolved with as little loss of life as possible. And it's kind of hard to talk about ranking factors in the context of something like that, but that's what we're going to do today because that's what we do every week. But before we get to some interesting stuff about ranking factors and Google, I wanted to bring up a couple of things that happened earlier in the week, which was, Amazon made another sort of splashy lawsuit against a couple of review brokers that were running these sort of schemes, free products for positive reviews that are pretty widespread on Amazon. But also in that item was a discussion about Yelp Elites who are being bribed to write positive reviews or to post reviews written by other people, review brokers. And the quote, this is based on a local NBC affiliate that did a kind of an investigation. And the quote that was striking was, this is a Yelp Elite squad member speaking to NBC. One former Yelp Elite told us he was part of an invitation-only online chat that included a few thousand members, Yelp Elite members, who were paid $25 to $50 per fake review to post fake reviews created by third-party brokers. And, Yelp, as we discussed before, filters out about 29% of its reviews as untrustworthy in an attempt to kind of capture these fraudulent reviews, but it's obviously being unsuccessful in this context. And I don't know how widespread the elite fraud problem is, but a few thousand people is a pretty ominous suggestion that there are a lot of people on Yelp who are trying to cash in on their status.
I had a couple thoughts about it. One is that Yelp, while they claim they filter these reviews in an effort to filter out bad reviews, what they really are doing is attempting to make it more expensive for spammers to leave reviews by taking the low-hanging fruit of newbies out of that picture.
Which is what seems to be happening. The cost is $25 to $50 a positive review.
Exactly. Which is the other point, is that it has in fact driven up the cost to $30, whereas a Google review is probably $3 to $5 to buy. So it is but also interesting to me is that the Yelp practice of filtering out positive reviews just because they're positive reviews is in violation of the FTC new guidelines of treating all reviews equally. So I'd be curious to see, and they were one of the 700 companies that received notice that they have to behave by certain standards. It'll be interesting to see if the FTC examines that sort of arbitrary cost-saving measure, because I don't believe it's the only way to moderate deceptive reviews. It's cheap.
Well, what's interesting about that is that I think there are a number of cases, California cases and cases in other jurisdictions, both dealing with search algorithms and Yelp in particular with its filtering of reviews, where the courts have basically said these companies can do whatever they want. This is their speech rights here. An algorithm is tantamount to speech, and you can manipulate it and arrange it in whatever way you want. And so is your policing of reviews.
Is it a speech argument or a 230 argument?
Well, no, it's not a 230 argument.
They can moderate any way they want.
Yeah, it's a speech argument, as I recall. I mean, I that just came into my brain, so I haven't had time to look at the specifics of the case, which I'll go into after we get off. But I think there's some case law. The short version is there's some case law in conflict with the FTC's directive now that you have to be even-handed.
When I spoke to the FTC, they expressed some likely concern that they would be unable to have any regulatory control over situations that fell under 230 or other higher
Yep.
rulings, and certainly Yelp and Google and Amazon all fall under 230 in that regard.
So
they do have
they're
limits.
completely immune from any liability for content of those reviews.
Yeah, I was going to say just before we move on to the next item that this story is interesting for a number of reasons, and many of which you already highlighted. But the thing that struck me is just the, it puts another nail in the coffin of Yelp's argument that they are representing the most accurate picture of local businesses when their review. Again, as we said on a previous Near Memo, their review filtering mechanism is simply different than other sites. Doesn't mean it's better or worse. And in fact, if you are accepting reviews from a very small subset of users, basically carte blanche, I think once you're in a Yelp Elite status, you probably almost never get a review filtered, if ever. So it'd be interesting to see
the whole
Yelp
point, right?
release that. Right. It'd be interesting to see Yelp release that data if there are any Yelp Elite reviews that are filtered. But secondly, just the fact that their algorithm is every bit as likely to be manipulated, fallible. Thank you. Likely to be manipulated as Google's and Amazon's and anyone else's. And so I just think that it certainly hurts their PR case of trust and safety, which they branded their white paper report on this topic a couple of weeks ago.
Well, I definitely think they have to go now much more. They have to do much more now to police reviews if they're serious about it. Mike, you were going to say something.
Oh, well, I had an experience with a friend who was dealing with some gated reviews. I went to the Yelp site because this business was soliciting Yelp reviews and gating them. And I searched for this business, found it, but it was literally 2 screens down after ads. It was like 6 ads because it was in the roofing industry before, even though I searched for the brand company, it was still well below the fold on a very large screen. So Yelp's argument about Google doing that is interesting as well. Also suspect because their behavior is actually more egregious or equally egregious.
Thanks for joining David, Mike, and Greg. To stay on top of the latest developments in local, subscribe to our newsletter at nearmedia.co. We'll see you next week.